Welcome back to another episode of Outdoor Adventures on Brownfield. I'm Brent Barnett. Today's show is brought to you by Beck's Hybrids. At Beck's, we are and will remain farmers at heart. This week on the show, even though it's the fall, we're talking crappie fishing here on Outdoor Adventures. There's a lot of people still going after the slabs in the lakes and streams. And so who better to talk to than Illinois farmer Derek Martin, who's the founder of TOPHAT Jigs. How's it going, Derek?
Good. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I've been doing a lot of fishing here with my son and my daughter the last, really several weeks. And a lot of people have been at the lake where we're at in central Iowa, and they're hitting up crappie like crazy near the banks.
Yep. Fall is probably my favorite time of the year to crappie fish. Of course, I'm sitting in the combine today, so I'm not doing a whole lot of it right now, but that fall bite, I mean, everybody likes it in the spring when they're up on the banks, but like you just said, in the fall, they move shallower too. And man, it's just a blast. And right now around here in central Illinois, a lot of our local lakes are just like it's happening, what you said, Lake Shelbyville, Clinton, Decatur, they're moving shallow and guys are just hammering them.
Well, before we get more into some of the crappie fishing stuff, tell us about your farming background there in Illinois, what you raise, and how the harvest season's been going for you guys.
Yeah, it's good. I live here in Mount Pulaski, Illinois, which is actually pretty much the dead center of the state of Illinois. Most everybody's heard of Springfield and Decatur, we're kind of right in the middle of them. Grew up on a farm. I farm with my brother Doug now. My wife Renee and my brother Doug and his wife Erin. We farm about 8,500 acres here in central Illinois, corn and soybeans. We strip till, no till. We're big into the regenerative side of things, biologicals, cover crops, and all of that sorts of things. And so we've done a little bit of corn, but basically we're in the home stretch of beans. We hopefully should finish beans by the weekend. We've had some really good bean yields, and we've had some average bean yields, nothing that's necessarily a home run. That seems to be what everybody's seeing around here. And in corn, same thing. There's been some good corn, but then there's just been some average corn. So we'll see once we get into it. But so far, the weather's been treating us great, and we've had a great start to this harvest.
Has that grain quality been kind of what you were expecting going into the season?
Yes, I think the grain quality's been good. People sometimes, farmers in general, we have a short-term memory. We didn't necessarily have a perfect start to this growing season. So some of that stuff that was planted when it was cold, or some of those early rains, the wet holes are still not very good, and some wet holes are still zero. So
Well, hey, hope you have a safe rest of the harvest here and you guys get finished up in a good pace. Back to the fishing side of things. What about TOPHAT Jigs? We had you on, I believe earlier this year. We were talking about the company and what you had going on. Never a bad time to remind the listeners, Derek, about the TOPHAT Jigs that you run there and what you offer.
Yeah, TOPHAT Jigs is a family-owned business with my wife Renee and my two boys Dean and Reed. In 2021, we came up, designed a crappie bait called the Guppy Gobbler. It comes in 2-inch size and 1.5-inch size. And what's unique about the Guppy Gobbler is it has a triangle tail, kind of like a guppy. And so you can fish with the tail being flat like this, or you can turn it and fish it with the tail being like that. So we kind of call it mermaid style and minnow style. So one bait, two modes of action. It's the only crappie bait on the market with that tail design. We do have a patent on it. We've got 26 colors in the 2-inch, 15 in the 1.5-inch, and it's just been a dynamite bait. And then here, this past August, we released another bait. It's called the Small Fry. Now, it's really tiny. It's 1.25 inches long. It's a very small diameter, and it's got a little split tail. And those are available on the website, www.tophatjigs.com, or your local bait store. But those come 12 baits in a bag, and we also put in 4 1/32 ounce jig heads with a number 6 hook in it. And what we have come to learn in the crappie fishing industry is, these fish they're finicky at times. When you're in the spring and they're on the banks, they they chomp at about anything. And that summertime and then that wintertime, they'll get a little finicky. And we found out they like that smaller profile, and that's where that small fry comes in. And so a lot of guys have been using it here, through the end of the summer months. And then as we go forward here into the fall month, as you said, they start to move back shallow. I'll go back to that 2-inch bait, that 2-inch guppy gobbler, or maybe the 1.5-inch guppy gobbler here for, another month or so. And then I'll switch back and I'll downsize back to that small fry. And I'll probably fish with that the rest of the winter.
Are there any techniques to work in these baits, Derek? Is it just a straight reel in, or are you jigging? I mean, what are the techniques that you have?
Yeah, there's a multitude of techniques. There's long lining and spider rigging and jigging and casting. And what I tend to do most of is I like to cast, and then I also like to single pull. I like to jig. And so sometimes the single fish, the roaming fish, I'll single pull those, try to sneak up on them, with a 13-foot rod. And pitch out and try to hold it still over them. I mean, holding it still is key. The live sonar has taught us that, holding it very still on those roaming fish works tremendous. And then when I get into fishing brush piles and where there's a multitude of fish, I like to hang back 15 to 20 feet, and I'll cast out there, and a very slow retrieve. And I like to bring it right over the top of that brush pile. And there's nothing better than if you have live sonar, when you're bringing that bait over the top of the brush pile, and you just start to get a little bit away from it, and that crappie just darts out and just hammers it. Sometimes it just takes a couple different techniques. Some days casting brush piles won't work, and they like that bait hanging still over the top of it, or vice versa. You just got to figure out what works best. And that's what's great about using the guppy gobbler. Say you're casting and you got that tail flat like a mermaid, and you're sort of seeing a little bit of reaction, but they're not finishing it. So they like the color or whatever. And so I'll turn it and put it to a minnow profile and cast it out there, and then they'll smack it. Sometimes you just gotta fine tune things until you get exactly what you want.
You mentioned a 13-foot rod. That would be kind of crazy to have him attack on. I mean, I bet that is a crazy ride.
Yes, it's a long pull. It's a long pull. My dad actually uses a 17-footer, and it takes some getting used to. I'll put it that way. But that way you don't have to get right up on top of that fish. If you're chasing roaming fish or single fish, it allows you to hang back off and not spook them. And, you can either pitch it out there to them or just reach out to it. And sometimes, like now in the fall, when they're on the banks, it's great to use a long rod like that. You can stay off the bank and you can just kind of dip along the bank with that long pole and stay out and not spook them.
So I'm located in central Iowa, and the area I go to is Lake Red Rock. I believe it's the biggest lake in Iowa. I'm not burning anybody's spot here or calling it out because it's not a top secret spot. The spillway behind the Red Rock Dam. I mean, anytime you go there during the day or on the weekend, it's just packed with people. But lately, I feel like the pictures I've been seeing online, there's a Lake Red Rock group on Facebook. People are just catching these giant crappies left and right in that spillway behind the Red Rock Dam. Do you have anything similar to that, Derek, as far as catching crappies on a spillway? I'm curious how you fish those types of areas.
Yep, we have two lakes. Clinton has got a spillway, and then Lake Shelbyville's got a spillway. And a lot of guys do fish below and catch a lot of crappie, and a lot of that is casting and retrieving. Slow retrieve in those areas. Once you find that spot where those crappie are hanging out, that's not so much a single pole type of deal. But just casting and retrieving from the bank. Up along the banks. They're moving up in that fresh water, and it can be a really dynamite place to fish. And in the fall, like you said, their fish are moving shallow or moving up, and so it'd be a great place and a great time to grab your 7 or 8 foot rod and a guppy gobbler and get to casting.
My problem is I get frustrated because I get snagged on so many dang rocks back there. And you might
Yeah.
as well make sure you take a lot of tie-ins with you because if you're not paying attention, you get hooked on a rock.
Yep. No, that's a problem. You get a lot of snagging. And that's another thing too. It's changed in the crappie industry. I personally have switched to braid. I use 20-pound braid from K9 Fishing. That's just there's lots of different braids out there, but K9's just the one I like. And I string all my rods, whether it's my casting rods or my single pulling rods, with that 20-pound K9. Now, it doesn't keep you from getting snagged, uh, but I lose less jigs using that braid now because this new technology with this braid fishing line, it's the diameter is so small. It's become smaller than monofilament line, and then obviously you get a better chance of getting your lure back.
That kind of led into a question here. I had a follow up for you, Derek. You don't have issues with heavier line affecting like the swim pattern of the bait or anything like that, or
No, I
making it
do
look
not, and
funky?
I do not. A lot of guys. I mean, a lot of guys still use that fluorocarbon or monofilament. A lot of guys use braid. A lot of guys will use braid with like a 1 foot leader of monofilament. But no, as far as the braid goes, had no issues, and I know a lot of other people in the industry do it. No issues casting, no issues jigging, no issues changing the bait movement or anything like that. The technology and fishing lines come a long way.
I know we're talking a lot about the fall. How was the summer fishing for you guys?
Summer fishing is really good for us, and that's become a long way too with things like live sonar and stuff. It used to be, and I'm sure when you were a kid, when I was, my dad crappie fished in the spring and he crappie fished in the fall. There was no such thing as crappie fishing in the summer because people were like, oh, they don't bite. Now we've realized, in the summer they move from shallow water to deeper water, and they hang out there, and so you just got to locate those spots. And we locate a lot of brush piles and stuff like that where they stack up in the summer, and we do tremendous. And that's when we use that. In the summer they're a little more lethargic. They're not as active as in the spring and the fall, and so sometimes you really got to entice them. And sometimes, like the bigger bait, like the 2-inch guppy gobbler, they just don't want that, and they don't even want the 1.5-inch guppy gobbler. So that's why we created that small fry. In the summer, we always downsize the bait size and we downsize the jig size, and that's why I said we use that 1/32 ounce jig with a number 6 hook, a real small hook and that tiny bait. And sometimes that's slow to fall, and that's really great. But sometimes if you need to be in a hurry, to get that bait to fall quicker, you can always pin a split shot or a peg weight, a foot above your bait, like a 16th ounce peg weight to help you get it down there quicker in the zone, especially if it's a little bit of a windy day. But when we downsize to that small size, we do tremendous in the summer around here.
I'm curious, any other species that you get to hit on the guppy gobbler?
Yeah, we've got drainage ditches and stuff around here in farm country. We'll catch a lot of smallmouth on it. We've caught white bass on it. I catch walleye on it. Last year we went on a summer fishing trip up into a flying camp up in Ontario, and for walleye, and the only bait I used the whole week was the guppy gobbler. So it'll catch about anything, and occasionally you'll catch a catfish or a largemouth bass, but walleye, smallmouth, uh, white bass. This new small fry we got is a dynamite bluegill bait. It's the only thing I use for bluegill now, and so it's a versatile bait.
I've always been shocked when I hear people say they catch catfish on swim baits, plastic swim baits. And then I had a guy tell me one time, well, why wouldn't they? They swim and look just like fish, and catfish like to eat fish. So it'll work for you.
Yep, I've got some guides that are on my pro staff, that they're on the water every day. So, but it seems like it seems like 3 or 4 days a week, they're always catching 1 or 2 bonus catfish, while fishing for crappie.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So Derek, I know you're in the thick of harvest here. Are you guys planning on going out anytime here before November, trying to get some fishing in?
Yes, the first rain day, you will see me on the water. And until then, I gotta live vicariously through people like yourself.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, hey, I hope you get out and get some fishing done. You guys could probably use a rain, couldn't you?
We could use a rain. We were dry. We had some nice rains there at the end of July, beginning of August, but since then, we've had a couple tints here and there. Fortunately, we missed some of the hurricane stuff, which I kind of hesitant to say that because I know a lot of people have took the forefront of that, and we're thinking of praying of those guys. But yeah, it's pretty dry. As the first thing we do every morning here is we blow our combines off every inch of dust off we can get because the fields are so dry and the sturt's hanging on the machines, and there's already been a few combine fires. So a rain would be much appreciated.
Derek, thanks a lot for the time, man. I'll let you get back to work here. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yep, anytime. I enjoy doing it.
Again, that's Illinois farmer Derek Martin, who's the founder of TOPHAT Jigs. Be sure to check him out sometime. Just a reminder, this week's program has been brought to you by Beck's Hybrids. At Beck's, we are and will remain farmers at heart. That'll wrap it up for this week's show. Thanks a lot for joining us on Outdoor Adventures. I'm Brent Barnett on Brownfield. Have a great weekend.